Hello, today I'm going to be talking to you about section 4.6 from the Algebra 2 book, that is completing the square. And the learning target is that you will be able to solve quadratic equations by using a process that's called completing the square. This may be a review from AG2, this may be something that is brand new to you. However, it is a new process. Instead of using factoring, in order to solve for a variable inside a quadratic equation. Now, what I have written down on a separate piece of paper that I'm about to show is a list of 5 steps that I have written out on what you do in order to complete the square. Okay, so whatever equation you start out with, if it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, the first thing you have to do is get all of your x's, your x squared and your bx, on one side of the equal sign, on the left, usually, and then all of the numbers that are by itself on the right-hand side. All the x's on one side, all the numbers on the other. Okay, then the next step is to do what is actually called completing a square. And you take your b term and divide it by 2. If your b is a 4, then you do 4 divided by 2 to get your 2. You then take that term and square it, completing the square. This number that you get after dividing by 2 and squaring will be added to the left and the right side of your equation, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Then step number 3 is to factor this trinomial on the left, which ends up becoming x plus b over 2, which is the exact same b over 2 that you've gotten here, and it is parentheses around it squared. Then your right side still stays the same as the c plus b over 2 squared. Then in order to get rid of the radical for our fourth step, you take the square root of both sides, and this leaves us with the x plus b over 2 equal to plus or minus the radical of whatever number you have over the right hand side. This may not be a c plus b over 2, it may not be as lengthy, it could just be a simple number as 4 or 9 or 12. It could be any number, but you must take the square root of it, and you must make sure that you have the positive square root and the negative square root. After that, you can split up the equation in using one of the positive square roots and the other one with the negative. Solving for x by subtracting this term to get x by itself, you complete the square. It will be handy in order to write all of these steps down as we go through 2 example problems. I will put this screenshot of this piece of paper on School Loop, but it is here on the video for you to copy down. The first example I'd like to go through on completing a square is an equation x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. Now the very first thing we need to do is get all of our x's on one side and the numbers on the other. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides of this equation. And I'm going to eventually be getting used to leaving some space between my middle x term and the equal sign, because when I complete my square, I'm going to add a number that goes in this blank and adding it on this side as well. Okay, so I'm going to take my b term, which is negative 4, divide by 2 to get a negative 2. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. I am going to take this and square it to get a positive 4. And this is the number that I'm going to add on both sides of this equation. So my square that I am completing is a positive 4. Divide your b by 2 and then square it. When you factor your trinomial, x squared minus 4x plus 4x, you are left with x minus 2 squared. and it is equal to the sum of negative 2 plus 4 after we've completed the square, which is a positive 2. After that, we take the square root of both sides. So we're left with an x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 2. Now you could get this into a decimal and round it off, but I'm going to keep it exactly like the radical to keep my exact solution. I then have two different equations. One with the positive square root of 2, and the other one with the negative square root of 2. Add 2 to both sides to solve for x. And add 2 to both sides to solve for x. So my two solutions are x equals 2 plus the square root of 2 and 2 minus the square root of 2. Now again, if you round it off the decimals, you will get something that looks a little bit different that you can simplify, but this is exact. And you will get two solutions for all of these. Okay, here's one more example. X squared minus x equals 3. Now in this example, it's not equals to 0. The first step is already taken care for us. We have our x's on the left and the numbers by itself on the right. So I'm going to take the term that is in here, which is a negative 1, and divide it by 2. This gives me the fraction negative 1/2. If you want to use decimals, it'd be negative 0.5, but start getting used to using fractions. You then take this number and square it. So we have to square the top and the bottom. And this gives us 1 over 4. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. 2 squared is 4. This is what we add to both sides of our equation. Factoring the trinomial at the very top, we get x minus 1/2 squared, and that is equal to 3 plus 1/4. And 3 as a fraction is the same thing as 12 over 4. And we're going to add 1/4. Twelve plus 1 is 13. We have x minus 1/2 squared is equal to 13 over 4. Take the square root of both sides. We have x minus 1/2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 13 over 4. Split it up into two different equations. X minus 1/2 equals the positive square root of 13 over 4, and x minus 1/2 equals the negative square root of 13 over 4. And the only thing you have left to do to solve for this x is to add 1/2 on both sides. One half plus the square root of 13 over 4. And your equation on the right, same exact thing, adding 1/2 to both sides to get x by itself, which is 1/2 minus the square root of 13 over 4. Okay, again, that original sheet that I put up with the 5 steps, I will take a screenshot and put it on School Loop. But here are two examples of the process of completing the square. You take your middle term, divide by 2, and then square it to get the number that you add on both sides. The completing the square allows us to get a binomial expression that is being squared right down here. And then it's just using algebra by taking the square root and solving for the x to get our two solutions. Okay? Thank you.